Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the SoCal Sports Dudes podcast. Jason Wen here. Today, I wanted to talk about NFL quarterbacks. We're going to go around the league, team by team, each division and each conference, and kind of discuss real quick about the quarterback situation. We call it QB or not QB. I don't know if that's already been taken or not, but we'll kind of go run you through each team. So let's start off with the Buffalo Bills. They got Josh Allen, of course. Total stud quarterback there for Buffalo. Looks like they are set at that spot for a number of years. Will be interesting to see, though, if since Daboll now has moved on to become the head coach of the New York Giants, who follows him as the offensive coordinator there in Buffalo. We'll see if that impact or affects Josh Allen's growth. But they do have a solid foundation there in place with Sean McDermott, so you would figure they'll just keep her steady as she goes. So we'll keep an eye on that. Miami Dolphins have Tua Tagovailoa. Is he their guy? I think there's still some question out there as if he's the long-term answer at quarterback for them. A couple years ago, we all know they drafted Tua over Justin Herbert. Doesn't look like the right move. Here we are a couple years later. It does not look like the right move. Of course, the owner I heard was in love with Tua. That's the way they're going to go, and they kind of missed. I think they, had a chance really to get maybe their next Dan Marino with Herbert. He was there waiting in the draft, and they chose Tua. So I think the jury's still out on if he's indeed their guy. We'll keep an eye on that. The New England Patriots looks like they've struck gold last year getting Mac Jones. Of course, Tom Brady 2 years ago moves on, goes to Tampa. They plug in Cam Newton for a year. And then this, past offseason, they found Jones in the draft. Comes from a strong system at Alabama, fits their system. Nothing flashy, but just a smart guy who, makes good throws, makes good decisions. Had a very solid, probably the best season out of these rookie quarterbacks that we saw. We don't know if he has some of the upside that some of these other rookies do, but nonetheless, looks like a good pick by the Patriots. They look set at the position for now. The Jets have Zach Wilson, a guy they drafted second overall last year's draft. Showed some flashes. Started off kind of had a rough patch there, and then even before the season even started, his quarterback coach passed away. So I'm off to a rough start. But it seemed like toward the second half of the year, he really seemed to kind of get on track there, or at least show some signs there. I think that Jets fans have a lot to be optimistic about for years to come. Moving to the AFC North, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, they have their guy with Lamar Jackson. He's one of the most electric players in the league. I mean, never seen a quarterback that can, as athletic as he is, be able to run the ball and make the throws he does. Will be interesting, though, at the end of the year, he did get an injury. Is that something that's going to linger? Tyler Huntley did a good job there as a backup. Does he have a role either there or somewhere else after that? I don't know. Cincinnati Bengals got Joe Burrow. He's their man there. He's really propelled them to new heights there in only 2 years. I mean, incredible. They go from, the mess that they were to draft a 4-win team in Burrow's first year. He gets hurt. Second year they come back, and here they are in the Super Bowl. I mean, go figure, right? But Burrow definitely looks like a keeper there in Cincinnati. Got the fans have a lot to be excited about. They have their guy, and then of course you give him a weapon like Jamar Chase, who was his favorite receiver in college, and boom, you got all of a sudden struck gold there. So Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield, they see their guy. We'll have to see. They haven't signed him to the long-term deal, so I think they're still kind of determining if he's the guy, the answer, the long-term answer there. Solid guy. I mean, solid player. He did really good for them last year when they were kind of run the ball first. Mayfield makes throws in around that. This year he played hurt, so it's kind of hard to really determine if he, was it more the injuries or was it the system or just how much of a ceiling he has. But it seemed to work out good the year before. This year, he played through injuries that maybe he needed to sit a little longer and rest up and come back healthy, and would have given them a better chance, because the Browns really looked like they were on their way end of last year, where they got into the playoffs and almost took out the Chiefs there in that playoff run. So we'll see. I don't know how the Browns feel about it, but you also have to wonder, if you commit to him, is he worth one of these big deals that some of these other younger quarterbacks are getting. I don't know. I think the Browns are still trying to figure that out. The Steelers, that's going to be interesting. They're going to finally have to change the quarterback spot there with Ben Roethlisberger finally retiring after a long career. And what a run he's had, a couple of championships, been kind of the centerpiece there for the Steelers for all these years. I mean, great run there by Big Ben, but it looked like kind of he was at that point where there's probably time to move on from him. Now the question is, do they have the guy in house with Rudolph or Haskins? I don't know if the Steelers feel 100% confident that that's the case. If not, do they make a move? I mean, will they get in the Rodgers or Russell Wilson sweepstakes? Deshaun Watson, I don't know. Jimmy Garoppolo, is that a guy that maybe if he's moved on from San Francisco that the Steelers make a trade and acquire him? I mean, guy won games, solid, maybe would fit that system or be considered an upgrade over the current batch of quarterbacks they have there. So we'll keep an eye on that. It's going to be interesting though. No Big Ben in Pittsburgh for the first time in forever. Move to the AFC South. The Houston Texans have to figure out still what to do with Deshaun Watson. Haven't had any resolution with the court case, so we'll see how this ends up. Davis Mills stepped in, did a good job as a rookie last year for them. Is he their long-term answer? I don't know. We'll see. This year's draft, do they look at that? Do they look at free agents? What can they get in a Deshaun Watson trade? A lot of things still up in the air there with that. Jacksonville Jaguars got their guy, of course, Trevor Lawrence, last year's #1 pick. Now they hire Doug Peterson to be the head coach, so that looks like a guy who can work with the quarterback that they have there. Good, solid coach with a good track record. So Lawrence looks like he has someone he can look forward to working with and maybe be able to get the most out of him. Indianapolis Colts, a little bit of a question there. Carson Wentz, they traded some pretty good draft capital there to get him. Is he their guy? I don't know. He started off, guns blazing coming out of the draft in his rookie year. You're just like, wow, look at this guy. He's got athleticism, got a big arm. But after the injury, he just kind of plateaued and kind of started to trend downward and just never seemed to recapture that magic. Can he recapture it? You thought with Frank Reich, is a guy who worked with him in Philly. Can he get him back on track? I don't know. They were kind of needed an answer there after Phillip Rivers retired. Thought, okay, Wentz looks like a good, viable candidate for the job. He kind of missed out there in the winning the job in Philly, but okay, give him a chance here in Indy. He could start anew. He's got Hilton and Pittman and some receivers around him, that good offensive line that he can work with, but it just seemed kind of ho-hum there. So we'll see what Indy's plans are for the near future and the distant future, foreseeable future with if Wentz is the guy they want to stick with. Doesn't look like they have an in-house candidate behind him with Eason and Ellinger. I don't know. We'll have to see what they do there. Tennessee Titans, of course, Ryan Tannehill had a pretty rough playoff game against the Bengals with the picks, but such a solid guy for them for all these years. Kind of a little bit of a step back this past year, maybe part of it due to the fact that Arthur Smith took off and got the Atlanta Falcons job. So a little bit of a different guy calling the plays there. Did that impact Tannehill's overall production? Also, Derrick Henry getting hurt. Didn't maybe the more of the weight went on to Ryan Tannehill's shoulders and he needed to carry the load. More, and some of his weapons being hurt with Julio Jones being in and out of the lineup. A.J. Brown missed some time. So, and Henry, of course. So, the numbers weren't quite there. And in that playoff game, they looked like they were in position to really take control of that game, but they were running the ball, having success, and then try to get cute and throw some, sneak some throws in there, and ended up turning the ball over. Maybe they didn't need to do that. They could have kept away from that and just kept running it and taking control and pulled out the win that way. And they would have had the playoffs, of course, home field throughout if that was the case. But unfortunately, the Bengals, man, give them credit. They are a feisty bunch that not only beat Tennessee, but also went on the road to KC and, of course, beat the Chiefs and now on to the Super Bowl this weekend, which we'll see how they do there. But Tennessee, we'll keep an eye on that. Tannehill also is kind of maybe getting up there a little bit in age. Do they have a guy in mind to maybe groom to be the next guy? We'll have to keep an eye on that. AFC West, this is a division that has a lot of quarterbacks right now and potentially more if the Denver Broncos make a deal to get Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be worth keeping an eye on. Of course, Nathaniel Hackett, the new head coach there in Denver, has a track record with Aaron Rodgers, a guy that Rodgers speaks highly of. Will the Broncos make a move and try to get Rodgers into Denver? Either way, they're going to need to get, if it's not Rodgers, it's going to be maybe someone else, because they need to, it looks like, to do something. The Bridgewater Lock combination they had last year, Drew Lock the year before that being the guy, it doesn't look like that's the way they're going to take this moving forward. Kansas City Chiefs, of course, got their answer with Patrick Mahomes. No need to even really talk too much about that. That's clear, pretty clear as day. The Raiders got Derek Carr. Now, there was a question maybe there if, depending on who the head coach was, the next coach was, would that impact whether they stayed with Carr or not? Because I was thinking if they hired, like, say, a Jim Harbaugh or something along those lines, does the next coach want to move on from Carr? Can you trade Carr and while his value's high? But with McDaniels, looks like the coach that they hired, it looks like he's had kind of thoughts or interest in Carr before. It sounds like New England tried to make a move to get Carr over to the Patriots once Brady left. Of course, Carr stays put there in Vegas, does a great job with under Gruden and Bisaccia. And now we'll see what McDaniels can do with him. He's obviously did work some good things there in New England with Mac Jones. And now you have Carr there in Vegas. You got to maybe add some more weapons around him. Unfortunately, you got Waller, you got Jacobs, but unfortunately some of the draft picks haven't been the strongest. You got guys, their receiver position just seems kind of like a little lackluster there. You had, of course, the unfortunate incident with Ruggs, who I'm sure they were counting on to be a target for Carr. Gets into that the accident he had that unfortunately now puts him in the position he's in. So we'll have to see there with what they put around Carr, but it looks like Carr, the quarterback itself, the position is pretty solid there with him. LA Chargers got Justin Herbert. They seem pretty happy. I'm sure that Miami passed on Herbert to grab Tua, and then Chargers Herbert falls right to them. Big arm quarterback, obviously high ceiling, lots of endless potential here with the Chargers offense with Herbert at the helm there. So good, perfect landing spot for them. Rich history with good quarterbacks there with the Chargers. Now it continues with Herbert. Looks like they definitely have their guy for the foreseeable future. Move over to the NFC. Dallas Cowboys look like they have their guy, of course, with Dak Prescott. Probably don't need to talk too much about that. He just, of course, signed a long-term contract, so got some good weapons around him on offense. Interesting to see, though, if McCarthy, if he doesn't quite meet expectations this year, do they make a change? If they do, Sean Payton, and it's a guy you've always heard mentioned connected to the Cowboy job. If so, he's worked wonders in the past with quarterbacks. Imagine the things he'd be able to accomplish with Dak Prescott, if that is indeed the case, if Payton were one day to become the Cowboy head coach. Got the Giants, look like they're going to stick with Daniel Jones. He has obviously some tools that maybe Daboll can get more out of than Judge was able to. The unfortunate, we had the offensive line wasn't the best the last few years. The receiver position, you draft or sign free agent guys who get hurt. So it just seemed that in Barkley, the running back, you can't really get the help from the running game. So, and then Jones, of course, had some injuries himself. So kind of a messy situation there with the Giants offense. Let's see though if they can get this all kind of figured out, get some more help on the offensive line, get these receivers healthy. Maybe Barkley can stay healthy. Daboll in place now can work his magic with Daniel Jones. Sounds like they recently announced they're going to hold on to Jones and not really make a change there. So yeah, we'll see what the Giants can do with the new coaching staff in place there. The Eagles have Jalen Hurts. You have to wonder if that's their long-term answer there at quarterback. He's a solid athletic quarterback. Obviously a great leader. Had some great success there at Alabama and Oklahoma before getting drafted second round by the Eagles. Great leader, obviously very athletic type quarterback, but I wonder how high is the ceiling, and did maybe the Buccaneers exploit a few things there with some of the limitations that might be apparent there with Hurts? Can he overcome those? Can he improve his his arm strength and get some more throws downfield and be more of a threat of going over the top? Because that's kind of one thing that I think that the Buccaneers anyway, game planned around, and Eagles had a hard time moving the ball there in the playoffs. So we'll see if Hurts is indeed the long-term answer there. Washington Commanders, that's obviously the new name there, Commanders. Washington football team, now they're the Commanders. I don't know how crazy I am about that name, but hey, they have Taylor Heineke. Did a good job for him last year. Kind of a fill in the blanks type of guy, or stopgap guy once Fitzmagic got hurt. So now Heineke steps in, did a good job for him, but can they get better at that position? I'm sure that's a question they're asking themselves right now, and chances are they are looking at other options. They have, of course, draft is a way they can go. This year's quarterback draft down, there's a couple of potential guys there, but we'll have to see who ends up where and what Washington's ends up doing, or if they just stick with Heineke for now. But does seem like they can consider other options there at quarterback. Moving to the NFC North, the Chicago Bears look like they finally have their guy there with Justin Fields. Great athlete, comes from obviously all that success he had there at Ohio State. A little bit maybe of a surprise they didn't go with an offensive-minded coach to help elevate or get the most out of his abilities. But, Eberflus, I'm sure, a smart guy. He's going to bring a offensive coordinator over who can highlight Fields' abilities. So Bears fans, I'm sure, are excited to see what Fields can bring here in the next few years. Detroit Lions, do they have their guy with Jared Goff? That's kind of still a little bit debatable. Solid guy. I mean, he did get the Rams to a Super Bowl, not because of him, but he helped get them there. Solid player, but I don't know long-term wise if he's the guy they see taking the franchise into the future and for years to come. What are their other options if they decide to switch it up from Goff? I don't know. The Green Bay Packers, another question mark there. Jordan Love looks like the heir apparent there, waiting in the wings. Do they move on from Aaron Rodgers now? We have to find out. If this offseason is finally the offseason where they go their separate ways, they trade him, which team does he go to? I mean, kind of looks like maybe Denver, but sure, a number of other teams out there that would love to have Aaron Rodgers on their team. I would think, though, from the Packers' perspective, they would probably want to trade him outside their conference, so probably an AFC team would make the most sense. We'll definitely have to see how that goes. The Vikings have Kirk Cousins, of course. I was questioning if they, depending on who they hired as coach, maybe they were going to make a move on from Cousins and maybe let Kellen Mond take over or start looking at other options there. But Cousins, solid quarterback, has familiarity there with their new head coach to be Kevin O'Connell. So that is something I think that strengthens the case that they hold on to Kirk Cousins. NFC South, Atlanta Falcons have Matt Ryan. He's starting to get up there a little bit in years, but still rock solid. Doesn't really, the weapons around him don't seem to be what they were. Ridley kind of stepped aside there. They traded Julio Jones. I mean, you do have Kyle Pitts, so you have an up-and-comer there at the tight end position. But you would think if they're going to stick for now with Ryan, that they would have to find some other weapons to help him be successful. The Carolina Panthers are going to probably need to make a change there. They have Sam Darnold and Cam Newton last year. I don't know if that's the answer there. We'll have to see what happens there with them. New Orleans Saints, another question mark there. I think this whole division, except for maybe the Falcons, has a whole bunch of question marks. Saints, do they stick with the Winston, Taysom Hill, Simeon combination? What kind of moves are they capable of making? They don't have a lot of cap room, it looks like. What are their what choices do they have? We'll have to see. What does Dennis Allen want to do? No longer Sean Payton running the team there, so worth keeping an eye on. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, you hear Tom Brady's retiring, but is he really retiring? We'll have to kind of see here. But I mean, look at if he is indeed retiring. I mean, man, wow, the career he's had, definitely the GOAT, man. I mean, 7 rings. Even this year, I thought they were on their way to another Super Bowl appearance because the Rams over here had a nice lead on them in the going into halftime, but they left the door cracked open, and Brady, even with injuries on the offensive line, some missing his top receiver, one of his top receivers with Godwin, another one of his top receivers, Antonio Brown, gets dismissed from the team. And he still pulls them like on the brink of pulling out a win against the Rams there in the playoffs. Wow, I mean, you kind of figure he's still got some gas left in the tank if he wants to keep going. It'll be interesting to see, though, that with who they bring back. They have some, I Godwin's a free agent. You have a couple of free agents there on the offensive line. If Brady's still there, maybe a free agent wide receiver will take less to go play with Tampa Bay. That could very well be the case, but we'll have to see. It just seems, I don't feel like I'm not anyway ready to close the book on Brady, even though he's 44 and talking of, it's going to be soon. He's still, I mean, the year he just had, he's like an MVP type of year he just had at his age. I don't know if they're officially done there in Tampa Bay. I mean, if it is, I mean, is Glenn, the combination of Gabbert and Kyle Trask the next batch of guys? Do they maybe try to lure Jameis Winston back over there? Going to be interesting there. NFC West, this division's pretty loaded with quarterbacks. Arizona Cardinals got Kyler Murray. A little bit of a weird thing there. We unfollowed the team on Twitter recently, but I mean, what is that? I mean, probably some sort of play to try to get a contract. Will be interesting to see, though, if this next year doesn't go quite as they would like. Do they move on from Kingsbury? Kingsbury, of course, is a guy that really highlights Kyler Murray's abilities. So worth keeping an eye on there. But Cardinals have a young, athletic, exciting quarterback. Looks like he's their guy for a while. The Rams, of course, made the move to get Matt Stafford. And even though there's some little bumps in the road there, here he is. He gets them to the Super Bowl. And we're obviously a big weekend ahead of them getting to this point. And this is the reason why they made the move was with Goff and giving up all that draft capital to go with him to get Stafford is for moments like this. And you can see McVay's just having a good old time there with Matt Stafford as his quarterback. The 49ers, a little bit of a question there. They have obviously Trey Lance waiting in the wings, last year's first-round draft pick. They traded up to get him, athletic guy who has a lot of abilities that Jimmy G doesn't. But Jimmy G is just solid. He wins. The locker room loves him. The team loves him. Just win, baby, as Al Davis used to say. And that's kind of what Jimmy G does. I mean, he had him on the brink again of getting past the Rams in the playoffs. If that's the case, then he has him in the NFC Championship game after just having him in the Super Bowl 2 years ago and being close to pulling out a win there. Nothing super spectacular, but just solid and kind of a dependable type guy. I mean, he does make some errant throws here and there that make you cringe, and maybe you have to have a lot of help from the running game, but you could do worse. I mean, so if indeed the Niners are going to move on from Jimmy G, I'm sure a couple of the other teams out there, the Steelers, Carolina, Denver, I mean, that's just to name a few teams that might be looking at getting a quarterback. Jimmy G might kind of fill a void there for him. Tampa, New Orleans, Carolina, as I mentioned, they're that whole division. So some definite landing spots. So if Jimmy G isn't the starter in San Fran next year, I'm sure he's going to end up somewhere where he can be a starting quarterback for the next team. And then finally, Seattle Seahawks. What happens there with Russell Wilson? I mean, guys had a great run there as a Seahawks quarterback. Looks like they're keeping Pete Carroll around, so that was kind of one thing I wanted to keep an eye on, because if they moved on from Carroll and hired an offensive type of guy to run the team, maybe Russell Wilson doesn't feel compelled to ask for a trade or I need to move on. I mean, you have a good thing going there in Seattle. I mean, you did have the injury, the dislocated finger there that kept you out a few weeks. If he didn't have that injury, maybe they're still right there in the thick of it at the end, sneaking into the playoffs. And who knows, with a guy like that, anything could happen. It's going to be weird, though, if the Seahawks do move on from Russell Wilson. It's like, who would be next? What kind of trade can they make to get the next guy in place there? Where does Russell Wilson go? I mean, that's going to be kind of be odd, because there are a number of potential trades, like quarterbacks that we're familiar or used to seeing in a certain uniform that might be traded with Rodgers or Wilson and Jimmy G. Might be moving teams. You got the retirement of Roethlisberger and the perspective, at least looks like retirement of Tom Brady. So those are teams where we're going to have a new guy under center there. So definitely worth keeping an eye on also from this point out. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. We, going around the league and talking quarterbacks. We'll keep an eye on things and we'll keep you posted if we see any changes. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.